For those that have joined us, we'll be starting in a minute. Okay, so many people I see joined us here on Zoom and on over social media. So good afternoon, good morning. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this webinar that we'll be speaking today about the impact of local content policies on solar and the renewable energy market in Saudi Arabia. This webinar is organized by MESIA and powered and moderated by Solar Arabic. We are proud to have a very experienced panel today with speakers from the Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia, Aqua Power, Saudi German Factory for Solar Products, and NES Firecraft MENA. If you are not able to join us via Zoom, or if you have any friends, colleagues that wish to join us, but they can't make it through Zoom, please advise them to go to Solar Arabic's social media channels on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and they will see the live broadcast right there without registration. The recording will be available on YouTube within 24 hours after the session. So if you miss a part of it, if you have to leave early, don't worry, you can always catch up later. A couple of admin questions, please. I want to make sure that you hear me well. Can you please give us your feedback in the chat window and tell us if you can hear us well, if you can see us, if you see the slide in front of you, just to make sure that the connection is clear. If you're on social media, please write that in the comments, please, under the broadcast. Clear, so everyone can hear us well. That's awesome. Next is the questions. We encourage you, please, to ask your questions right away and not to push and postpone these questions till the end of the session. And please don't send the questions in the chat box, but send it in the Q&A box. The Q&A box will enable us to notice your question, to make sure that we address it either in the session or later on by email if we don't have enough time. Our session will last for an hour with the final 10 minutes Q&A section in the end. So we address most of the questions during the session. I'll start with the introduction. So my name is Munif Barakat, and I'm from the Solar Arabic platform, which is the biggest renewable energy platform dedicated for this topic in the Middle East and African region. And I have an amazing panel today. We'll be introducing the panelists in due course as we go through this session, and we'll be addressing today's topic from multiple perspectives. As you know, like if you read latest reports from IRENA or from IPCORP, you usually see very big investment projections for the coming 5 years. For instance, in the latest report from IPCORP, we for the outlook of 2021 till 2025, the report says that the investments in energy will increase to $805 billion, with the power sector leading this growth and Saudi Arabia being at the forefront of that growth. Obviously, one of the key topics and key agenda points for many countries in the MENA region and in Saudi Arabia as well is the renewable energy in its multiple forms, whether it is solar, CSP, or PV, or hydrogen, or wind. We see a very strong growth, some very strong projections, and the potential is clearly high. But we need today to dig into the Saudi Arabia market, and we'll be talking about these, let's say, success stories, the coming mega projects that come from NEOM and REBDO, and the sustainable developments and green growth agenda of Saudi Arabia. Well, the reason we talk about localization is because it has been common around the globe that many countries open up the investments in solar and in renewable energy in general. They build huge capacities and multi-gigawatts very fast, but without building a proper renewable energy industry in the country. Well, this is not the case in Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia has introduced the local content requirements from the early days, even at small percentages, but ensured that whenever we build capacity, we are building an industry as well, which is a unique and strategic way of thinking for the future. And we'll be learning more about this as we go through the session. First of all, understanding what is meant by the local content, how to understand this, how it has been developing, and how it affects your project as you plan for it and as you execute it and service it later on. So in the beginning, I won't take long in the beginning, so everyone will get fair share of input during the session, and you also, our attendees, you'll get some time as well to ask questions, and we answer these in the end. So I'll start with my first guest, Dr. Amin Yaqub, who is the localization advisor at the Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia. He's an engineer, MBA, with a PhD in innovation management, with multiple executive roles in the Saudi energy market, and we'll be very happy to hear from him from the ministry perspective, how to understand the local content requirements for renewable energy projects in Saudi Arabia, and any guidance that we can get from your side. Dr. Amin, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. This is Amin Yaqub from the Ministry of Energy. I'm very excited to have this panel discussion with my peers and with you all around the world. This is a very exciting time to speak about the local content, given the momentum that we see in the Saudi market, especially with the humble beginnings that we started with in 2016, 2017. So a brief introduction about the local content and local content policies is that the rationale behind the local content policies is given by the amount of spendings that the government is having, and also the giga scale projects that are developed across the country. A clear example is the Renewable Energy Program of almost 60 gigawatt, NEOM, Amala, the Red Sea project, and many others that are in the scale of $1 billion and much more. So with this, having this size of market, it's essential for the government to retain some value out of these projects, and that's considered in the form of localizing the industries, providing the products, materials, and services, as well as in the form of developing jobs and having an impact on the GDP. So the local content has been considered as a key element in the national strategy, is a key element in the Vision 2030, and it's here to stay for the long run. Now, when it comes to that, initially the local content policies for renewable energy sector was introduced with the first projects under REPDO, or Renewable Energy Project Development Office. However, later on, with the integration of the key functions of the Ministry of Energy, we have introduced a dedicated program. We call it the Energy Sector Local Content Program. Now, this program is entirely dedicated to developing the local content policies, conducting the studies, and also aligning with the rest of the stakeholders in the government. So at these days, we are experiencing something unprecedented of the level of coordination and alignment between all the relevant stakeholders, from the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources, Ministry of Investment, the Local Content Authority, King Abdullah City of Science and Technology, and many others. So having said that, what we also would like to highlight is that this local content policies also is coming to address a recent challenge that we all see given the global conditions. So the recent report from IEA, the Net Zero, highlighted the significance of having secured supply chain, and how the supply chains, the local supply chains, can impact the energy security. So energy security is highly impacted by the security of the supply chains, and this is why we highly are having a significant focus on the local content and developing local content policies in Saudi Arabia. Another thing we would like to mention is that this dedicated program that works coherently is addressing the major challenges that are touched by the developers, the EPC contractors, and manufacturers. And the reason why we have this program is to rapidly resolve the issues, speed up the decision-making process, and come up with new solutions that can be implemented quickly in the projects that are tendered. Moving forward, I think it's important to highlight that whatever policies that we are developing and embedding in the project requirements are dynamic, and they are based on the current market development and our assessment of the supply chain and its capabilities and capacities. We also consider, for example, the quality specifications and technical specifications that are used and adopted by top-class developers and contractors around the world. So we always ensure that the requirements are updated regularly based on the market needs, based on market conditions, based on market status, and also based on the supplier and manufacturer capabilities as well. We have also considerations for the impact on the price. So we understand the point of view of the developer when it comes to how the procurement from the local supply chain or the local suppliers might impact the LCOE. And for that, we have developed a specialized committee from all the relevant stakeholders for the local content development related to the renewable energy projects to discuss and evaluate the impact on LCOE. Now, there is also a myth that needs to be debunked that local manufacturing in Saudi Arabia might result in higher costs. And given the experiences we had in the previous projects, we've seen that actually manufacturing in Saudi Arabia can sometimes result in competitive prices globally. And I think my colleague and my colleague in the panel, Anas Madhani, will take you through some examples that they have experienced at ACWA Power. Lastly, we've done some extensive work at the ministry and understanding the value chain and supply chain, for example, related to solar panels. We found very interesting figures that 50 to 60% of the solar panel can be localized within the maximum of 2 years. This, of course, can be done with the help of the other stakeholders in the government, the private sector in Saudi Arabia, as well as the international OEMs and developers and EPCs around the world. So with this analysis, we found that there are lots and lots of opportunities for the private sector to consider and develop, whether by extending their current manufacturing facilities or coming up with new products and services. For example, we have found that aluminum frames can be localized within a matter of a month or two. And there are many aluminum manufacturers who are very interested in providing aluminum for the solar panels to be used in Saudi Arabia. Another case is Wahaj. Wahaj has been established in around 2016, and they have been working together with many suppliers in the region and exported. They have experience in exporting to India, Turkey, and other markets as well. And so these two examples show that there are competitiveness of the local market in Saudi Arabia. Now, also the program that I mentioned, the local content program, is also working together with the investors and the manufacturers to develop the right incentive scheme that support them to bridge the cost gap between Saudi Arabia and abroad. And we always welcome any suggestions and ideas and proposals from the private sector to enable their manufacturing plans and also enhance their profitability and sustainability in the market. To this point, I think I would leave it, and I would conclude by saying that we at the Ministry of Energy and the Local Content Program are highly interested in speaking and visiting and meeting the private sector, whether it's companies in Saudi Arabia, whether it's JVs or foreign investors who are interested in establishing their factories and companies and services in Saudi Arabia. And we will come to having any dialogue that will enable the manufacturing and localization in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe just like as you just mentioned this, what are the best channels to communicate with you for private sector in this regard?
I think the best way to communicate would be by having maybe a form that we can communicate to you, Mr. Munif, that you can distribute with the attendees later on.
Perfect. We'll be sending anyhow also the recording of this session to everyone, and then we can include that for the interested parties. Thank you very much, Dr. Amin, for this introduction from your side, explaining this also and the purpose of these regulations. We'll get back to you. There are a couple of questions that we received about this topic, but we'll do it in the end of the session. Thank you. I'll move now to Mr. Anas Al-Mathami, who is the head of localization at Aqua Power, and he's a mechanical engineer with many years of experience in consulting and working in important companies like SABIC and Aqua Power. And today, I'd like to ask him to highlight the same topic, but from the developer perspective. We know that Aqua Power has been very successful developing renewable energy projects globally and specifically in Saudi Arabia, achieving some of the lowest LCOEs in the world, definitely handling these local content requirements in their projects. So I wanted to check with you about your experience. What would you say to that? And how did you benefit from such regulations?
Thank you, Munif. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited and glad to be here. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Anas Al-Mathami. Really, that was a really great overview by Dr. Amin, just to show that how important and strategic local content is for Saudi Arabia, and how it will be continuously looked at. It's not something that will go away. So it's very important to also plan around that. And it gives comfort, to the local market when developing or building out the supply chains in the future. So also a very important idea before maybe I get started here. I have a couple of slides I'll present. But before we get started, the localization, as Dr. Amin mentioned, and I think we've also touched upon very quickly, the localization of the supply chain is extremely important. Not only to the government from a GDP perspective and making sure that you're retaining as much value in the country, but it's also important from a risk management perspective. If you look at the developers, where the developers are responsible to build, operate the plant for the duration of their PPAs. So having that local supply chain developed, having that local manpower trained, having the human capital available, the different entities or private sector entities knowledgeable about how to interact with you as an IPP or a developer is extremely important for the continuity. And I think, I know that in every webinar over the past 2 years, everyone has mentioned COVID in some way, shape, or form. But it really was a very good example of why you need to make sure that your supply chains are very efficient and very strong. Because you really want to keep on and make sure that you're continuing to develop and reaching your targets. We're blessed in Saudi Arabia that maybe we did not get the impact as much as other countries had to go through. But to an extent, that was also a very important message or call that we need to further look at supply chain as a de-risking factor for your energy. Supply chain localization, and I think that's also something that we're very aware of And we do naturally, not only in Saudi Arabia, but also around the globe in our different projects in the different countries. So with that being said, today I prepared a couple of slides to take a deep dive into the tracker localization. I know that some of the attendees here, I think some of the panelists have already heard about it, but I want to go deeper and look at it of why was this able to happen? What ripple effect impacts were we able to get out of it? And to just give you a picture that localization is not only about complying with local mandates or local requirements, but can actually be very beneficial for the private sector, especially when you have a significant announced pipeline. So Munif, I think I'll try to share my
Yes, please. You can
presentation.
take over, please.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes, but it's not full screen yet. Oh, now it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll use this kind of these slides just to kind of guide the conversation a little bit and just give you an idea of what happens when everything comes together, and that will give you some insight on what were the necessary steps taken, because you can't just expect the government to go on one direction and everyone else to pull back. You can't expect the developer to push on one direction and everyone else to pull back, nor the EPC or the private sector. And it's really a combination of all these four different stakeholders, with, of course, other secondary stakeholders. But these four specific stakeholders have to come together to really shape or create the opportunity within local content. So before we start, just very briefly talking about Aqua Power for those that are not aware. Currently, today we own assets, operate assets that have 41.6 gigawatts of power. We also do a lot of work in water desalination. Maybe Mezia, if they go into desalination one day, we can have quite a significant conversation there. We operate in 13 countries. Our portfolio, renewable energy, consists 33% of our portfolio. In the different countries we operate, this is a point just to be very aware of. We hire local of almost 60% or more, depending on the country we're in. So the average is 60%. 30 nationalities exist in Aqua Power, and we span about 3,500 employees. We're quite a young company, considering the business we're in. We're about a little bit over 15 years old. Now, just moving from this, let's talk about what we're about to talk about today. So tracker localization, why is this a topic that was discussed? When did it happen? So if you recall, the SCACA project, 300 megawatt project in the north of Saudi Arabia, tendered in 2017. Basically, there was an effort there to localize the trackers, right? And the reason is, first of all, there was a local content requirement of about 30%. And I'll tell you at the end what the project was able to achieve, but we'll keep that suspense for later. And I'll explain just very quickly. So 30% requirement, you're split between main equipment and services. Let's say PV panels are typically 40 to 45%. Trackers are about 14 to 16%. The inverter plus transformer, you're talking about 7%, more or less. And the rest will sit probably with the EPC, between local subcontractors and the EPC contractor themselves. Yeah. The reason I just went through that quick breakdown very quickly is that trackers are almost the second biggest cost element after PV panels in renewable projects. Okay, and during the capex stage. So what do they really consist of? So trackers are steel structures, but they have quite a lot of engineering behind them to build them out in a specific way. A little bit, or some electronic components that make probably about 10% of the tracker overall structure cost, but then quite a developed steel fabrication process, whether torque tubes, beams, piers, how do they look like? How do they handle the stresses? How do they capture higher generation and so on? All of this gets into the engineering. So we started to see that there's an opportunity there. Steel structure fabrication in Saudi Arabia in general was quite strong before, but it was mainly driven at big civil projects. It was not used or utilized in the sense that we have seen that the trackers required. So let me just briefly go over what happened next, right? We identified this opportunity, so what next? There was a perfect storm, so to speak. That perfect storm allowed this to happen. And the perfect storm looks like this, right? Storm in the positive sense, of course. So the off-taker had a very clear local content requirement. The requirement was very specifically defined at 30%. There was a mechanism to measure that, and there was a target on the developers that were tendering for the project. It was sent out, very clearly communicated, very clearly broken down. The developer then had to respond to that RFP, number one, and number two, because we are a Saudi developer and this is our market, we don't see this just as a compliance of target, but it's actually important for us for the other projects that will come down the line or the business that we want to develop. So we really had a big interest to look into it, looking at this as our home market. Now the OEMs. As many of you know, tracker suppliers operate basically in one of two mechanisms. Either they only do engineering, that's it. So I'm talking about the OEMs themselves. They will only do the engineering and they will subcontract all the fabrication work. And then some OEMs will actually do a portion of that fabrication work themselves, especially on some of the items that they consider intellectual property. So the OEMs working with the developer, right, during the engineering phase of the overall project, we started to do a lot of refinement and enhancement, and the OEMs played a very big role in that they were able, or they were open to actually qualify local steel fabricators. They were open to transfer some of that knowledge on the tracker industry, and they were also able to address quality assurance issues. So that was very, very critical, because without that, you really don't have the knowledge that you transfer to the local suppliers. And then, of course, you had to have the local market that was willing to actually take that knowledge in and invest, right? So the local suppliers had to actually put in, everyone here, if you notice, will have some skin in the game. So for SCACA specifically, 3 manufacturers, they invested almost between 50 to 60 million Saudi riyals in a period of 1.5 to 2 years. So this investment was specifically for the trackers, and it went to machinery, buildings, and training. Very specific, very targeted. They saw that they were able to deliver that, and they went ahead. Note that there was a pipeline announced, but the new projects were not announced specifically when at that time. So the local suppliers had to actually believe a little bit that in the market, and then number two, really focus on competitiveness from day one. And that's very important because we don't want to create a market where it's heavily incentivized, and then you lose the outside competition or the international competitiveness. And at the same time, whoever wants to play in this industry has to look at this as a pure business case. Whether it's the government or the developers or the OEMs or the EPCs, no one will be happy just to kind of provide direct support to a business that they know that is not looking to be competitive over the long term. And we'll talk a little bit about how this focus and serious on competitiveness went ahead. So the result, we were able to localize almost 45% of the tracker scope. To give you some perspective, initially it was zero. Then it went to 45% because a big balance of that steel structure now got subcontracted and fabricated in Saudi Arabia. In future projects in Saudi, you will see this number go above 60%, okay, of the overall scope of the trackers. And that's thanks to the continued developing regulation, number one, and the development and the continuous development of the local suppliers. So 45% of the total capex cost was localized. Approximately, local orders were almost amount to about 225 million Saudi riyals. The impact on the overall capex was about 7%. right? This is 7% purely from one element, from one main piece of equipment, not looking at anything else. So, okay, we localized for this KSA project. What happens next? From 2017 till very recently, we had quite a significant developments in the pipeline where projects were not available in Saudi Arabia, but what happened to the local tracker suppliers that already had invested in facilities? Now, because they were competitive, I want to show you here just very quickly, because they were actually focused on competitiveness from day one, what happened is the following. They were able to be competitive or even more competitive with trackers sourced from extremely low-cost producers around the world. I'm talking at landed cost basis. Now, this is around the GCC region, right? We have seen this in our own projects. So 3 of our projects were procuring from the same tracker manufacturers at different periods, from different OEMs continuously, right? And that's completely directly to export. And in projects that are not our own projects, which makes us really happy because that means the tracker is actually now standing on their own and they're actually able to demonstrate their competitiveness away from Aqua Power directly. We've seen orders go to North America, go to Australia, and then also go to Jordan and Vietnam. And that is not because of any support that was provided to them directly or indirectly. That was because they were actually able to prove that they're competitive. Other qualitative aspects that we have seen within the tracker manufacturers, they have been recognized from trade organizations around the world in terms of response times, logistics. They're competitive internationally with the lowest cost producers around the world. And basically, since the delivery of the KSA project, some OEMs or tracker manufacturers in Saudi Arabia were able to report almost 100% utilization. That's quite significant. Even in a booming market, you're looking at 70 to 80% typically. But these manufacturers, when they invested in the right place, the right time, had the right focus from day one, they were able to create quite a significant and important and competitive product. So this story, for steel structures, it was quite on the nose, was very direct. But we believe, like Dr. Amin mentioned, that this can be repeated in other industries. You just have to make sure that the perfect recipe is there, and that we're able to actually to identify these business cases, these opportunities, and open it up to multiple local suppliers or local investors at the same time. And as with anything else, it was never something easy. There was a lot of contribution from the different stakeholders along the chain. So that is also a very key point, is these opportunities will not be easy for anyone to come in and capture, right? There's quite a significant barrier of entry, but once you see that value and you actually want to put your skin in the game, we think that it can be greatly unlocked. With that said, I'll just open up, I'll just stay on this slide for a little bit. One of the things that we have right now is we're looking at local suppliers in Saudi Arabia. If you want to get in touch with us and you're a local supplier in Saudi Arabia, you have established the commercial registration. We have quite a, I won't list down the projects that we have, but we have a quite significant list of projects in gigawatts, both in wind and solar in Saudi Arabia and other projects. So if you're interested to participate, please, you can scan the barcode. You can look at the link here and send it. I'm pretty sure maybe if we'll circulate some of this content later on. So write in as much detail as possible so we can help our main contractors engage with you. We're here to support you with them in their discussion. Like we did with the trackers, we're always here to bring together and nurture these partnerships. So please consider us your advisor when engaging with these partners with whatever you need. But also let's make sure that we approach this seriously. We approach this in a competitive manner. And we think for the long term. This is not something that you want to do for 1 or 2 or 3 years. I hope I didn't take too much time, but thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this input on us. It's very important to see how the local content regulations enabled Aqua Power to localize this much and to achieve such targets and to remain very, very competitive in the market and win tenders. We'll get back to that because we've got a couple of questions about this from the audience. But first, I'd like to move to Mr. Vikram Nanda. Vikram, he's the regional director at NES Faircroft MENA. He's a major in business and finance, has been involved in the solar industry for the past 6 years, working on multiple solar parks in the region, including the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park, phase 2, 3, 4, and 5. So with his experience in this, would like to hand over to him to address the same topic, but we spoke about technology, we spoke about manufacturing, localizing all of these elements, but we want to see how we also attach this to the localization of the human capital, how to build capacities to enable this transition and to encourage the local workers to enter into the renewable energy market and to be part of this success. So it's to you, please, Vikram. We're happy to have you on board.
Thank you very much. You can hear me okay?
Yes, clear.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you to the Middle East Solar Industry Association, my fellow panelists and all the attendees today. And like the other panelists, I'm very excited about joining, participating in this discussion. I'm going to give a quick overview of NES Faircroft, talk about us as a company, our renewable solar experience, our Saudi Arabia experience, and then most importantly, talk about the impact and our experience within localization in Saudi Arabia. So, you know, on the screen now is just a nice kind of diagram to give a visual aid to our experience in the Middle East. So NES Faircroft is a manpower company fundamentally, operating within the energy sector. We operate across various different technical sectors, and one of those is our renewable sector. We're quite proud to say that's been our fastest growing sector over the last probably 3 years now. And, you know, the Middle East region for NES Faircroft was a leading kind of pioneer in that particular sector. And if you kind of go through the diagram now on the screen, you can see we first kind of established in the Middle East in 2004, but in 2016 on the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park, that's where we really got our foothold within the renewables industry within the Middle East, and that really propelled our experience within that particular sector. You know, and I'll go on to talk about localization, but, you know, there are other initiatives that we've been involved in within Saudi Arabia. And another one I'd like to just kind of zone in on this diagram is our diversity as a business. And, you know, in 2019, we reached 1,000 female contractors employed, and we recruited you know, trainers for the first ever female driving instructors in Saudi Arabia. Another thing we're very, very proud of within the kingdom. Moving on to the next slide, I hope it's all moving across and everyone can see. We talk about our solar experience as a manpower company. And, you know, we've worked with a lot of different clients on these particular projects. Like I said, this started within Dubai, within the solar industry on Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park. There's different phases, and we've gone across that journey as the phases have got, you know, larger, with new clients coming along, giving us more challenges, but certainly more opportunities. We've then moved kind of into Abu Dhabi, into Oman on these projects, and then that's brought us really into Saudi Arabia, where we've got early positioning on these projects. And I think it's, you know, worth noting that Saudi Arabia is our largest kind of presence within the Middle East, and that really leaves us well positioned for the future growth within the solar sector, and to use our experience of localization, which I'll touch on later in this presentation, to then see how do we use that localization experience in other sectors to then leverage that into the solar sector, but to do it even bigger and better than we've done before. So not hitting our targets, but actually exceeding our targets. You know, and I think that's really important. The third slide goes on to a bit about our Saudi Arabia experience. You can see when we were established in country, you know, we've got platinum status in terms of our localization, something we're very, very proud of. But it's great that we've got that, but how do we maintain that? How do we do the same things and do more and come up with more creative ideas, which I'll touch on, to improve our localization and to really drive that forward? You know, there's an ICTVA score there, which is very kind of specific to Saudi Aramco, but it's how we've achieved that percentage by creating in-country value. And that's something, again, we need to transition and cross over into the new sectors, specifically renewables. So, you know, both from us as a manpower company, but our clients, how we can work closely together to drive these efficiencies to kind of go towards that localization goal, you know, as one, really. Okay, so now the importance of localization and how to achieve the energy transition goals. Certainly there's going to be challenges, and we know that as a company working in different sectors. But how do we use those challenges? How do we understand those challenges and then turn them into opportunities? So human capital, it's a very fluid business. You know, the movement of people, and that in itself is a challenge. We have a new sector within Saudi Arabia, and therefore the skills is something we need to be aware of. You know, these are evolving skills. These are new skills, and we need to understand how we can position ourselves best in this sector, but then also how can we be creative and work with our clients and the specific teams and our clients to create opportunity within this sector and exceed the targets. So, you know, to talk about kind of a bit more specific examples, one of the things is we've worked with talent acquisition teams. We've worked with teams that are called different things within companies all around human capital to understand, you know, the talent pool within country, the skill set that's available, you know, the challenges they've had, our experience, and how we work together to map out a localization plan and not achieve that, you know, in a fluid motion of as we go on, you know, whether it year by year, but actually how do we plan that for the future? Because it's the planning aspect that allows us to be able to understand future challenges and to be able to have solutions to kind of work around them. Other opportunities within this are, you know, training and development, and, you know, career progression. And it's very important to talk about these across all levels. You know, sometimes we just associate these with kind of graduates and you know, new intakes, but across all levels, training and development and coaching should be available. You know, not just within localization, but it's certainly something that's very important to this topic, and it's something that needs to be discussed with the clients and where we can use our experience to open those discussions, whether it at round tables or during kind of talent mapping. And that takes me on to that quite nicely in terms of talent mapping. What does that mean? Well, we have experience of doing that across all pools of people, and expats included. And it means, right, what is the sector? What are the skills that are needed? What's the experience within those skills? What are the job titles? What are the salaries we're dealing with? And to understand what is available in the market at those different levels. And that then allows you to have an acquisition strategy linked into localization, where you know, okay, we can obtain more in these particular skills or these particular areas. And it allows you to then develop that localization plan according to your talent mapping of what is available in the market. Attraction and retention, two very important words. You know, we may need to transition skills from other sectors that can be transitioned into the renewable sector. How do we do that? How do we attract this talent at a more experienced level? But then how do we look at young graduates? How do we look at the new generation and make this a real interesting industry or sector to work in? We should be proud of the sector and how it adds value to the country and the targets and the long-term goals, and why these new grads or junior individuals can play an important part in the future of the kingdom. You know, and then retention is also very important because it links into career progression, the future, you know, the stability of their careers and how they can move forward. And that's something I think is really important for us when achieving our localization, getting that attraction and retention out to the market. Just my last slide now. You know, we've seen CapEx mentioned on other slides by Mr. Anas, but, you know, CapEx and OpEx are two keywords we talk about when we look at projects, but they're also words that we should talk about when we're looking at localization as well. You know, what stages are we in of the project and how does that relate to attracting talent and talent mapping? So for example, CapEx, you know, traditionally we have seen more expats hired in this particular part of the project. But what does that mean? Okay, yes, CapEx has a timeline, but then when we do hire locals, these should be in key positions that add value to the CapEx stage and then translate well into the OpEx stage. You know, so key positioning hiring for localization, you know, is very important. And then when it comes onto the OpEx stage, you know, this is a long-term area where we've experienced higher nationalization targets and one we need to really invest in and look at how do we retain that knowledge, how do we you know, position that as career progression and long-term growth for the individuals and really invest in that from a localization perspective. Shadowing and coaching, I mean, the last couple, I'm going to 3 bullet points there are real key examples we've seen of really achieving our localization targets and exceeding them, and that's shadowing and coaching. Now, we have seen it in different sectors, but how do we use what's worked in different sectors? You know, we've seen new graduates come in, we've seen them being shadowed and coached by other individuals with more experience, but then eventually those you know, locals have taken those senior positions and have gained that knowledge and intake and been able to progress then into those more senior roles. And we've also seen, you know, Saudi nationals go into foreign assignments, but specifically within the renewables and solar sector, where they've left the kingdom, they've gone out more experienced individuals, they've worked on key solar projects in the region. We've seen it on Mohammed bin Rashid solar park in Dubai, but then the plan is for them to come back to the kingdom and have that experience and come in at senior key level decision makers within these projects. And then finally, you know, a case study we're very proud of where we recruited 120 Saudi national graduates in one recruitment drive. And that was done not just on our own, but working with our client, ensuring that, you know, we were very closely together, working on the ground. We interviewed 300 individuals to get to those 120 hires. We held assessment days. You know, it was very interactive. It was all about retention. It was all about, you know, opportunity. And it was a very successful program that we were able to achieve and, you know, really add to the value of localization and something, you know, like I said, us and our client are very proud of. So, you know, there's a bit of a presentation there on an overview of, yes, NES Faircroft, but how our experience has been within localization and what we've seen in terms of case studies and example and how we can look to use that to therefore position ourselves for this new sector in solar and you know, exceed the targets. I think that's where we need to look at. So look, thank you very much to everyone for the opportunity and look forward to fielding some questions.
Thank you, Vikram, for sharing this part, because it's very important to focus on the human capital side whenever you localize, because it's definitely the biggest portion of localization. There is nothing that can be done without the talented and skilled local workers. I'll move then this session, please, to Zuhair Hamid. Do you hear me well?
Yes, have a nice day for all. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. You are welcome. I want to introduce you that you are a factory director of the Saudi German factory for solar products, but we'll give you the chance to introduce yourself, please, and the work of the Saudi German factory.
Thank you very much. I'm really appreciated for this chance to share our actually real case study for localization for solar products in Saudi Arabia. So let me talk on behalf of Saudi Solar Nova team. I'm Zohar Hamad, engineer for electrical engineer and the factory director for Saudi Solar Nova. We are located in Al Kharj. It's in Riyadh area. So actually, we are focusing on. Let me add some points for Mr. Regarding to the local content. We are talking about the number now. We will talk for according to the number how we see the real opportunity to create a factory here in Saudi Arabia. I will share my screen.
If we try just please to stay here within 6-7 minutes, and that would be great.
Yeah, exactly.
I will pass. Time. Yeah, thank you.
I will pass away directly. I will pass away. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's not in full screen yet, but I can see it.
Yes, let me make it full screen. Now it's good?
Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Actually, let's talk. Wait. Actually, let's talk about that. How we saw the opportunity to create a factory here in Saudi Arabia, and let's talk about the local content. This idea has been created after we saw the local content numbers and needs for this kind of manufacturing. Among the best way actually to enhance a national industry is local content here in Saudi Arabia. So actually local content will help that to reduce the cost and save the cargo fees and warehousing, custom duties, and actually that it will be increase the power purchasing power for the Saudis and residents here in Saudi Arabia. So it will be increase the income for the governments regarding to the task free assets. Actually, the global contracts enjoy higher profit sideline as the local content rate will cost less than the imported materials. If we are talking about importing the material from China, maybe from outside of Saudi Arabia, actually, the cost will be high. Local content actually has been an excellent opportunity and tool to enhance and improve the quality and quantity of national industry. Let's see how we saw this opportunity. I will give you like small numbers regarding to the 2030 vision. After 40 years from now, Saudi Arabia will depend on renewable energy about 54 gigawatts. Yeah. So if we can just like a small calculation, if we need to achieve the lowest actually local content rate, it will percentage, it will be at 15%. So we need, if we are talking about same our capacity of manufacture, we need about 45 years just to achieve these the 15% of the lowest local content percentage which is required. Or we can talk a full year production of 45 factory of our capacity. So that it's a great opportunity for other maybe investor or for local manufacturer for this kind of product. And actually any company to take such a project will not accept a low quality product participate in the project, especially when you are talking about solar project. They are giving long-term warranties, so about 25 years. They will have to make sure that the products they are using in the line actually meet their quality. Yeah. This means that a rigorous inspection and the quality check will be actually implemented in all aspects, and be it will on an administrative of the power quality production. A worldwide business management expertise will be actually implemented locally. This is a very good. And actually, let's talk about how we get the support from Saudi government. Actually, we have a Saudi Industrial Development Fund, SIDF, is actually, let's talk briefly, it is actually a primary financial enabler for the industrial transformation in Saudi Arabia. Actually, they give us a recommendation to get the best from the best. Their team actually follows up with, especially if we face some problem, and they will be able, if they can do their best actually to solve this issue. And actually we face, I'm talking about real issue, a real case actually from them. So I appreciate them and thanks for them. Mudun, actually, you know, Mudun, the Saudi authorization authority for the industrial city and technology zone, they support us with the infrastructure. They develop and manage industrial city, and they enable actually a sustainable growth in an optimal economic environment. They have actually more than 35 industrial city around Saudi Arabia. And it's they're managing with a great tools this kind of industrial city. And let's talk about Sabir. Actually, Sabir is an e-platform with developed under the supervision of the Saudi Organization for Standardization. Sabir, actually, it's managing the imported material to Saudi Arabia to ensure that all the imported material under the international standards, actually, the best international standard. So actually, they give us like a platform, individual platform to simplify actually and speed the entry of raw material. They give us exemption for raw material for which all the raw material included to our product. Yeah. And actually, after that, they give us like conformity for all final products as SASO specs. So they make sure that all the product gets IEC tested, certificate to make sure that all the local even product are under their specs.
If you please just to wrap it up in a minute, or I don't know if you are done.
No, I already finished. Thank you for your sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zuhair, for sharing this experience with us from the manufacturer's perspective, explaining how local entities in Saudi Arabia and regulations helped you to start the manufacturing business in Saudi Arabia. With this, we have done this initial, let's say, and the main round of today's discussion. We have just hit the hour right now. So I would like to ask the participants if you can remain with us for just 5 minutes, so at least we can cover a few of our questions that we received, and the other questions we'll make sure to cover them by email later on. So I'll start with the first questions that we received from Mr. Abdul Ghafoor Al-Dubaisi. And I think it's better to address them to you, Anas, please. The question says that solar has been a public interest, but is there any interest in solar from the private sector in Saudi Arabia? And how do you see the developments in the CNI sector in Saudi Arabia in general? I think these are two questions that I think would be great if you answered them, please.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you very much. So yes, it's been a public sector interest for now, because you really need to start any footprint in any country, really, with big projects that help you, establish your footprint and establish the viability. Now, in terms of CNI market, we're seeing a lot of movement in Saudi Arabia. That is basically looking at solar not only as a solution for a green power source, but either they're looking at it as a backup power source, a power source for remote operations, or in general, a combined profile to provide a cheaper power source than the one you're able to procure from the grid. So we do see that. I think the regulations there are being developed, like net metering was launched earlier this year. I think more room will be given also to rooftop solar, but that is still a developing market. I think that the first area where we see all of this come together is from the heavy energy users. And I'm talking about the industrial users, whether they're in Jubail or Yanbu or in these industrial areas. And I think from there, we'll see a bigger traction happen. In terms of regulation, there is a move, there is a healthy move, but let's see how that continues beyond net metering.
Thank you. As you speak, so we save time. There's a question from Mr. Amr Sabra. In case of tracker, there is 45 imported parts that are electrical, 55% steel fabricated part, which can be produced locally. So if you assemble the tracker in Saudi Arabia with a portion of it manufactured in Saudi and another portion that is not, would you consider the whole final product as a Saudi product or not?
Okay, so that depends, right? And I know that people don't like to hear that answer, but it depends. So currently today, the tracker added value has to be 60% or more from Saudi Arabia. So the SCACA case right now would not make the trackers local. So 60% of the procured value of the overall tracker has to be from Saudi. As we move along, it will increase more and more as the local capabilities increase. Let's not forget that the requirements managed by the Ministry of Energy and the local content authority eventually take into account what is in the market along with the Ministry of Industry, and then they basically gradually increase or decrease. So as of now, what I think Ahmed, what he mentioned would not be considered local. Okay, you would actually have to split the POs, and every PO would actually have to get a different target. If it's 60% or more, you might be before the end of this year, but I'm not sure what the plan is for 2022, 2023, and moving forward.
Thank you. I think I got the follow-up question for you. I think I can answer it right away. They asked if the solar trackers manufacturing market is already saturated in Saudi Arabia. I think the potential is very big.
No, so not at all. You're still. I'll give maybe the people that we work with a lot. I'll give you guys an interesting insight. Everyone that has already walked into the market are very big players originally, right? And steel is in their business. I think there is potential for SMEs to enter that market and specifically just focus on solar trackers. We would love to see you guys. We'd love to see what you can offer, but I think there can be a very big area to just do a pure play tracker subcontractor fabrication facility at the level of an SME level. I think with what Mr. Zuhair just mentioned, this IDF, Mudun, all these entities supporting you, I think you can create a healthy competition for everyone else in the supply chain.
Okay, thank you very much, Anas, for this input. I'll ask a question to Zuhair, please. There's a question from Mr. Brahim Fuad. What is the effect of reduced product of semiconductor? So this semiconductor shortage, the global issue that we have now, what is the impact of it on the local Saudi market? And would this work in favor of you as local manufacturers in Saudi Arabia or not?
I'm sorry, actually, as I told you, the internet is not good. Can you please just repeat again?
Yes, so Mr. Ibrahim Fuad is asking about the semiconductor shortage, the global issue that we have now, and how it affects the projects in Saudi Arabia. And you as local manufacturer, how do you deal with this shortage of semiconductor products?
Yeah, actually, not only semiconductors, and now supply chain, even the shipping from outside of Saudi Arabia now is rise up too much, you know. Actually, what we did now, we play a game like that with the application for the solar panels, for solar power application. Like we have done a production line for solar street light. And actually, before maybe one half year, we started this production line, and we actually we give like a good a promotion price because we are new in this market, and we hope next year this price will going lower, inshallah. After the second quarter of we expect that after second quarter of the next year the price will be lower, inshallah. So
Sure.
we will, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah.
Thank you for this input. And I think we've got some inquiries for you, Vikram, about the, let's say, finding and hiring talent in Saudi Arabia, a local talent. I think something that you can help with, but maybe not throughout the session. Make sure that I connect you right after this session with the interested parties. And Dr. Amin had to leave for another meeting. So there are a couple of questions that were directed to him. I'll make sure to send it to him by email. We get these answered and sent to you soon. So in the end of this discussion, I wish to thank our panelists, Dr. Amin, Zuhair, Anas, Vikram, for being with us. You've been really awesome to address this topic from different viewpoints. I think we gave a complete picture of how to handle the local content policies and regulations in Saudi Arabia, how to benefit from them, and how to achieve successful projects and low LCOEs as we have seen in the Saudi market. And I wish also to thank all of the attendees today. We had hundreds of attendees today on the session. I'm happy that you've been watching us from Zoom and social media. If we missed anything, please send an email to info@solararabic.com if you have a question, or if you want us to connect you with any of the panelists. And finally, I wish to thank the organizer of this event, which is MESIA, the Middle East Solar Industry Association, for organizing such very insightful events, inviting speakers like the speakers that we had today that have the market knowledge and share it with us generously. So thank you, MESIA. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you for all of those people that attended this session today. And I hope that we speak and meet in the upcoming sessions. Have a good day, everyone.